welcome to a very special episode of Imagine with Royce. My name is Royce. For those of you that are new, today is going to be all about Hocus Pocus. I have gathered for you some of my favorite Hocus Pocus creations that I have made throughout the years, and I am so excited to show you an up-close look and let you see these witches in action. So, let's get started, dreamers. Alright, so to begin this episode, I really think it would be proper to say that Hocus Pocus is a film that I grew up with, and I am, like most of you, so excited for the sequel. It's been a long time coming, and these, for instance, dolls behind me were a work of passion, and I am so excited to show you how I made them. But first, we're going to talk about this very special book. Of course, this is the Sanderson Sisters spell book. This book was quite an undertaking for me to create. For me, the hardest part of any project is truly getting a real up-close, personal look at the prop. Also, from a painting standpoint, if you see it in the movie, it has quite a variation of colors, and just trying to make it look as iconic to the movie screen-used version as much as possible. This book, for instance, is an eye-open prop. Of course, the film's version has about 3 or 4 books. There was the practical book, like this, for instance, that has actual real pages. A couple books that were actually just like this, which are false pages that were just used to carry in case it was dropped or something, and this is a very light option. Then there was a few that were actual audio animatronic insides to where the eye would blink, of course. There was quite a bit of those books made, and this book was just such a blast for me to paint. And I think the hardest part for me in terms of this book was the spine. Creating the spine's fingers was very complex. I really had to study how the fingers kind of melted the fingernails into the opening cover of the book. And then, of course, the painting of the actual book itself was extremely time consuming. You know, this for me was such a fun project. This is a spell book that I think Disney should sell in the stores. I think that if they even sold books as detailed as these for $300, $400, $500, people would buy them. This book was such a fun prop to create and for me to have in my archives. Next up, we have the sisters. Now, these puppets were such a passion project to create, and I made them for a couple of different reasons. You'll notice at the end, kind of like the finale of how I kind of brought them to life, and they were so fun to create. I think that every witch had their own unique personality, their own unique look and like facial expression, and something that really brought their character to life. And let's start over with Miss Sarah Jessica Parker as Sarah Sanderson. Sarah was incredibly fun to create. She was kind of the only one with normal hair, so it was very simplistic, and all of these hairs are alpaca hair that I hand glued to the scalp, and then I draped over their capes because they are flying and it's cold up in the air, so I wanted them to look like they looked in the film when they were flying. And all of their costumes were completely handmade. So Sarah, you know, I started with her little like torso. I really wanted to put in as much detail as I could, but you have to remember that these are Barbie-sized dolls, so I, you know, did the best I could. And also sewing these were incredibly challenging for me because I'm a painter first and foremost and a sculptor, and sewing for me is very much new, and I very much enjoyed it. If you haven't checked out my dark crystal collection, I will link the video below. You'll see my costumes I made for the dark crystal puppets. Those costumes were equally as challenging as these, because these fabrics and these designs were not something that you could just order on off of Etsy or go to Hobby Lobby or Joann's. You know, they were all aged, they were all kind of like mixed in and custom made, so it was incredibly challenging to recreate these dolls. Her boots were sculpted onto the figure, so they were just painted on, and she was good to go when she got her cloak. And her cloak is 100% silk, so it flows beautifully with my wind machine, and you'll see at the end of the video her in action. Up next, let's talk about Miss Mary, played by the amazingly talented Kathy Najimy. Mary was probably the most complex out of the three in terms of facial expression because she has that side lip thing going on, and it was very, very hard to not only get that sculpted onto a face, but then to paint it and make it look as realistic it looks in the movie. Also, equally as challenging was her hair. I know that she has a hood on, but I actually went through the trouble of actually just doing the hair in that weird croissant looking thing. Was able to accomplish it surprisingly well, and then I just plopped on her cloak over. The hardest part of Mary's costume in particular, I found when I was looking for fabrics, was her apron. And I ended up finding a carpet rollout design. And of course her cloak as well is 100% silk, and it just flows really well in the breeze. And at this point you're going to be wondering, well, why didn't you give Mary her vacuum, and why didn't you give Sarah her mop? I wanted to portray the witches as you first see them in Salem. I wanted you to see their outfits after they get rejuvenated with youth, and I wanted you to see how they would fly in the 16th century. And I spent a lot of time researching those brooms because they weren't so screen used, so I had to do a lot of looking in the archives to see how Sarah's broomstick, how it had two ends that split, and Mary's, how it was very thicker, and they all were incredibly detailed. I think that a lot of time was given to the design of every single aspect, and I think that goes to the genius of Kenny Ortega. I think every movie he's made is just spectacular. Coming in last but certainly not least is the head witch in charge. We are talking Winifred Sanderson, played by the incredible Bette Midler. She was the most complex out of all three just because her costume is the most complex out of the three, and her hair, I kind of cheated, pinning it back and giving it volume where it needed to be, and then just plopping on her hood, and I called it a day. Her costume, on the other hand, I spent a lot of time finding that right beautiful kind of like velvet green, and I want to just share something with you just to see if you guys notice the difference. I don't know if you've watched the trailer for the new movie, but if you haven't, check it out. The costume is kind of like a very vibrant green, and in the production of the first film, even seeing the costume in the archives, it is still that color, but it came out so much darker in the film. So I don't know why post-production darkened it, but it's certainly not the case for part 2. And I found the kind of like that exact same color fabric for this model that I created, and then I hand sewn on all of her detail on her chest, and then I kind of went detailed with all those embroideries all the way down. I didn't want to go too crazy because I did realize that the pose that she's in, her hand's going to be covering it, and then she's going to have a cloak on over it. I did the best that I thought appropriate for this particular piece. If this was an up-close shot used in the movie, I would have went all out, but I think that what I got accomplished my vision, and that's all I really could ask for as an artist. It's so interesting seeing these characters in the movie and bringing them to a puppetry style. I really wanted to capture their essence and their presence and their personality. Do not forget to check out Hocus Pocus 2, streaming September 30th on Disney+. This is not sponsored in any way, but I'm sure it's going to be fabulous, so check it out. And as always, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more Hocus Pocus stuff, let me know. I'll create some more stuff. I definitely wanted to create the Sanderson Sisters Cottage and even Billy Butcherson. So if you want more, let me know. And always remember, dreamers, not only to follow your dreams, but to chase them. Later, dreamers.